So, who am I? You heard Laurette call me Peter in the last video, so it's a good question. But to answer it, I'd have to go back to the 1970s. Well, I'd probably have to go back to my birth certificate, which is quite a bit earlier than that. But for the purposes of this answer, the 1970s will do, when I was 20-something. And I've always been writing. And the first novel I wrote, it wasn't bad, but neither was it brilliant. It was good enough to attract the attention of a couple of literary agents, one of whom invited me round to her place to talk about it. So I went round and we had a nice friendly chat for an hour or so, and she gave me lots of good advice, which I promptly ignored. And then at the end she said, by the way, are you the Peter Prince that writes screenplays? And I said, no. And as I went away, I thought, well, that's not very good if she's confusing me with someone else, so I'd better change my name. So for my next novel, which took about 25 years to write, but that's a different story, I used my second name, which is William Prince. And eventually it was published by a publisher that went bankrupt afterwards. And one day I did an internet search. By this time internet had come along, and of course I came across a zillion pages of Prince William. Oh, and I thought, that's not very good either. I'm going to use a completely different name. And so that's how Curtis Bose came to be born. And it's a curious thing. I was listening the other day to a program about alter egos and how they can allow someone to do things which they wouldn't do normally. And I think that's the case, because Peter Prince probably wouldn't make a fool of himself on YouTube, but Curtis doesn't mind. So that's a very good thing. I invented a rule for myself, which was that Curtis would be my online identity, and if I met people in person, I would be Peter Prince. But this didn't really work, because I met a couple of writers online, and when we went to Australia, they're Australian, one lives in Melbourne, the other in Sydney, I met them. And I told them beforehand, Curtis Bose is just my pen name, and I gave them my real name. But they kept on calling me Curtis. So I realized that, in fact, for my writing, I am Curtis. And for my readers, I will always be Curtis. And I'm very happy with that. So there you have it, the story of how I turned into Curtis. It doesn't really change anything for me, and I don't think it changes anything for anyone, really. And it certainly makes no difference at all to the appeal I'm launching with Laurette in Madagascar to raise funds for the Little Sapphires School for the children who need a classroom there. So in the next video, I'll explain how you can sponsor me for that. Thank you very much. A bientôt.